In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast. I have a really fun episode today. A couple folks who also have a D&D podcast, but they do a storytelling. I have Nathan and Matt from the AARPG Podcast. Great name, guys. Great name. That's
Thank you.
Right out the gate. I listened to like that first like pilot episode of you guys, and I loved how you've been playing together for 30 years, you said.
Yeah. So over that, so our group, most of us met in college, but Matt and I actually went to high school together in the late 80s. We graduated in the late 80s. So over 30 years between me and Matt, and with a few of the other folks in our podcast, it's been met them like a couple of years later. So it's a really pretty tight group, and it's just a perfect excuse to spend our Tuesday nights role playing together like we used to, and at the same time make a podcast. Kind of.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, absolutely. So you so it was pretty much all because of COVID, right? Was that like what?
Yeah.
You guys get split up pretty much. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, we did. And before that, we had a gaming group. And actually, our Facebook group is called the Once a Month or Whatever group, because real life, jobs, kids, people started moving to different parts of the country. It really got hard to do gaming on a regular basis. And so, we even coerced our wives to finally start playing, right? To get the spouses involved. All right. Just so we could, but even then it was really tough. And so when COVID struck, I was working from home, and we were sitting around, and I had just started listening to some of my first actual play podcasts. And I just at some point, Nathan started up the Tuesday night game with some folks. And, I don't know when it was, but it was just like, hey, Nate, we could do this too. We play, why not just record it and let's do this podcast thing. And he jumped right on it. And it gave us, especially those first few months, there was a whole learning curve, just figuring out, what service we were going to use, how do we record? We made some, mistakes were made, right?
Yes,
there were some episodes lost. But it was a great way to refocus ourselves during the pandemic, and we began gaming every week. We've been now. What has it been? Almost 2 years now.
2022.
Yeah, it's about 2 years. Yeah, and we and Matt has like brought this up several times because we of course we game together like do that once a month ish type thing, but we'd also get together with a bunch of our college friends once a year for what we call like a geek weekend, where we a bunch of us get anywhere from like 8 to 15 of us get together for a cabin weekend where we just like drink and role play.
Yeah.
And so and it's like, and Matt's always saying, "Oh man, I wish we could record that." And everybody's like, "No, we don't want to record that. There's evidence."
Yeah. No. It's kind of like I'm also a stand-up comedian, so like the behind closed doors RPG games is probably much like an open mic. We're like, no, we're saying the stuff that we can't say on stage. So I respect that, and it's good that you can know the difference because everybody says things they don't mean when they're not being watched.
Yeah,
but
and I think we're definitely like I started out, and I think I said in one of the initial episodes that I don't want to filter everybody. Right. And we're harmless. We don't take ourselves too seriously. It's just like once everybody starts playing, it's really just the whole experience of it's just us at a table, and you forget the cameras are there, forget the mics are there. 99% of the time, occasionally like, oh, hey, are you recording? But really it's when we like start to talk about really personal, more like work and life stuff that doesn't really belong in a game. But we rib each other, we absolutely roast each other, and there's a lot of probably way too many inside jokes, and we probably do a lot of things that you're just not supposed to do in a actual play podcast.
Sure.
But we're having fun.
I mean, that's all that matters, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as something like, I think a lot of people who learn are like, I want to do a D&D podcast. And then you're like, oh, there's a lot of them out there, but like, it's fun to, you do it your way, and the people who want to listen will listen. And for me, I've had people like openly be like, this is a dumb idea. And then other people are like, yeah, I mean it. Like, here's one thing. Don't ever post anything on Reddit, because if it is slightly not pristine quality material, they will ruthlessly put you down. But then other people, I'll get like messages randomly from other people like, this is so fun, I love this. So it's like, yeah, you block out the haters and you go for it. But I do want to know, so like, I do love, so you've been playing for so long, and you started this game. Did you know right away you wanted to do, because I listened to a little bit of the first series, and then I looked forward, and I'm also used to be in a band, so I'm like all about what's your new one called again?
Oh, Sex, Drugs, and Saving Throws.
Yeah, I like that. That's fun. And I like how you do. So do you plan on like switching up the systems every time?
Yeah.
Yes. So we do. We started playing the Free League games. So Alien, and Nathan was already, it's actually funny, when we started playing, before we started recording, actually Nathan was running a D&D 5e game. We were doing against the Giants.
Yeah.
And so we that was just our play without recording. We did Free League's Alien, and then we did the Twilight 2000. And a lot of us remember playing that back in the 80s. That was a lot of nostalgia. And I will just say, not a plug, we're not sponsored by them, but like, we really are enjoying the Free League products and the game settings and the rule sets.
The fans are really super supportive too. You talked about posting on Reddit. We actually, like, in the Twilight 2000 groups and the Alien groups, all the Free League specific groups, they love the content, and they've been like really supportive. Occasionally on YouTube we'll get a comment that's like, "Oh, so and so is the worst."
Yeah.
Like, what was it? An embarrassment, right? Someone so embarrassing or something, right?
I'm a little over dramatic. I had a couple that people did like, but there was one video where people were really ruthless, and I was like, okay, you got to tread lightly. But no, but that I think it's great too. I think it's good to mix it up, and I like how you're doing these. They're not one shots, but they're like these smaller campaigns.
Yeah.
I think that's a good move, because if want to check out your podcast and I go and there's 45, 50 episodes, I'm like, this is weeks of things I have to now get caught up on. So it's nice because I could be like, all right, well, I can, if I want to, I'll start with the one that most appeals to me. So I listened to the first, a little bit of the first one, and then, but I saw that one, I was like, I think I'm going to just go right to the rock and roll one, because that's more my speed. But yeah, I love that. So when you guys started playing, was it like OG then when you started playing, or because you said you were in high school, right?
Yeah.
When the two of you started playing.
Yeah, it was advanced D&D, I think is what we played in high school. I think I started with Redbox with another friend of mine that I still play games with, but I met him in middle school. So I have to just say this: it's RPGs are the only reasons I still have friends. I've kept them. I've kept, like, I never let Matt go. I never let my other friend go, and this guy's from college too. It's just people would get deployed, move overseas, move out of state, get married, get divorced, and we kind of always come back to each other, and that's like the best thing. If the podcast crashes and burns, that's fine. We're still going to have a game.
Yeah.
It's so that's really the best thing.
I love that. I think, and that was one thing, and I'm all over the place because I really only started playing D&D period in 2020 because I was like busy as hell, and I am part of this podcast is me trying to cram the 29 years of tabletop role-playing games that I missed the entirety of my life. And I was like, why did I never try this earlier? Like, this is so fun. And I'm pulling my friends, like, we should have been doing this the whole time. Like, we would do this. You know, we would play imaginary games in high school. You know, we were probably drunk, but like, you know, it was just like, we would just make stuff up. And I was like, we could have been doing this the whole time. Yeah. Or, you know, but I was like, we could have been doing this the whole time. And this is like so fun. So now I started with a smaller group of people I kind of met more recently, but I'm doing like now a monthly game that we should have been doing with like some of my original friends. So I love to hear that because it really is. It's such a unique way of making friends and developing relationships. And I'm sure, have you ever played with someone who you were like, I don't want to be friends with this person at all?
Yeah, not often.
You don't have to use the names. No names.
It happens. It happens. But, you know, we talked about when we did we kind of all interviewed each other. One of the themes that came up was, you know, this idea that when we grew up, you know, role playing was like taboo. We have a friend of ours whose dad smashed all of his dice with a hammer because these were tools of the devil. Like all the stereotypes you hear. And I was talking about, it's only been just in the last few years that at work, I will actually openly talk about being a gamer because even though it's become very popular, the genre, there's still, you know, oh, you're that, you know, kind of weird. But I think one of the reasons it's so popular is at a fundamental level, we've been telling each other stories since we sat around in campfires, right? In caves, right? Whatever it is, you know? And so I think it's got a universal appeal. You know, people really like to get together and tell stories and be part of something. And I think that's that deep connection that once people kind of got over the social stigma, they realized, oh my gosh, like this is so much fun. You know, I haven't done this since I played Cops and Robbers, you know, or whatever, whatever.
I'm with you. I think everyone should at least try it, you know, and I mean, part of the reason, and, you know, you say you guys rip on each other. I'm just saying having older dudes or older guests on my podcast is my favorite because I get to hear that. Like, cause like I found out about that later. I was like, what? I was like, people thought like you worship the devil. So like every time I have someone who's like, even just, you know, 8 years older, 10 years older than me, I'm like, did anyone think you were a devil? You know, when you were with the devil? And did you guys, because you said like, especially I'm sure in high school and college, probably in like the 80s, you said, right? That was probably tough to play.
It was just like something you just didn't talk about in mixed company. But you could spot other gamers.
Right. Okay.
Actually, my wife and I just got back from vacation. We went to Central America, and there's a guy in at the hotel, and I guess he was there. He was like give me a speaker or something like that. But he was like wearing a kilt, and he had like a dagger in his thing, and he had kind of a like interesting goatee, and I was like. And I'm wearing my AARPG shirt,
right?
And it's like, that's because we have like a pretty cool. I think your logo is pretty cool. So it's like, do you guys game? Do you game? It's like I just knew he was going to ask because he saw it. He saw it, and I could spot him. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. But back then, no, you just didn't like. I remember like one of the jobs I went for, I had a boss that asked me if I played Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, I hadn't quite scoped him out yet. So I said, no.
Yeah. You weren't sure if he was asking to find out if he should fire you or trying to bond
right.
you.
It just wasn't really sure. So I was like, oh yeah, I used to. I was like, no, when I can, but we had another friend who the whole reason I play this game called Champions is this hero system game, very crunchy system, and I started running it again. But the whole reason I learned how to play that is because my friend who lives across the street from me was not allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons, so he had to play a superhero game.
Got it.
And that was same. We learned that. We interviewed Malcolm. It was the same reason why we played Robotech, because same thing. His parents would not let him play D&D. But if you were playing a space game, that's okay. That's science fiction. No harm, no foul.
That makes like a lot of sense in the fact of how like they're just like, it still is strange to me because like they had, you know, like, right. I mean, Lord of the Rings was out at certain point. Like when did those books
as a
come out?
book? Yeah, it'd been around a long time. But
I wish I could go back in time sometimes and like go to any of these people and be like, hey, just so you know, 9 times out of 10 you're trying to destroy the devil in the game. You're trying to stop it, and like you can be a holy person to stop the devil. Isn't that good? Isn't that what you want? Like I just wish I could go like, what's wrong with you? You know, just but I don't know, it's amazing. All right, well,
it's kind of funny. I'm gonna tell another quick little story yet. So this college we went to, our gaming group, it was I think it was, what was it called? Was it called the Medieval Society? Is that what
I think so? Yeah.
But it was I mean it was just a small two-year school, but it was the biggest campus club. And when you have a campus club, you get like office space, like cubicle space,
and money.
And money to do events and stuff like that. So it became like this kind of hangout spot for kind of all the weirdos, you know, like us. But the second biggest club was is the Young Republicans, and it became almost like this kind of Revenge of the Nerds kind of thing, where they were trying to get us kicked out and you know and complained about us all the time. And it was just kind of this weird, funny rivalry. It was just like, this was pretty comical, but yeah, there's definitely was some stigma there.
Like
for
you'd
the whole
be packing up the game and they'd be like staring you down.
Yeah. Usually like one blonde guy, but yeah,
we were kind of loud sometimes. We were not the quietest group up there.
No.
I do not watch sports, but I do understand now that like when it's game time for me, I go to my wife, I'm like, you leaving? You out yet? Like you go? No, I don't really, but I'm like, if you're going to be here, you're not going to want to be in this room or that room, because we're going to be loud, real loud. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to give you, did you have any, because we have 2 guests. Usually I typically do 1. So I want to make sure we have plenty of time for stories, because that's what this is all about. Do you have anything other than standard plugs that you wanted to talk about when it comes to the AARPG podcast? Because I'll give you regular plugs at the end, but like any inspirations or reasons why folks should check it out other than what we stated in the beginning?
I think Nathan nailed it. I think it's just, as we've talked about, it's just you get a chance to listen to friends telling stories and playing, you know, and having fun. And like I said, it might not be as serious as some people want or as dramatic, you know. But yeah, no, it's just, if you've ever wanted to like vicariously hang around with a bunch of friends and listen to them goof around and play games and tell stories, that's what we are all about.
I think it's great for those, like a lot of people working from home now. Like you just want to hear voices, you know, just want to hear people laughing and having a good time. I love that.
Yeah, and like my wife listens. Both my kids are like grown adults now, but they both listen and laugh along with it, and you know they get the jokes, even they're older people jokes. And I think you know, like we do have some drama, and we have kind of interesting characters, but none of us are. Well, most of us aren't actors or anything like that, so it's. There's so we're not going to be super actory, but we do get into character, and we try to make each other laugh. And I think that translates a lot to everybody else. So yeah, it's a good time. We're trying lots of different systems, and we edit the shit out of them.
We do. Yeah, I was going to say that we actually do spend a lot of time editing out like We got really good at starting to edit out like when well, yeah, I do some non-technical editing. So we cut out stuff like rules, lookups, unless we think it's instructive to the audience. Like we cut things out. But Nathan, like we really do a lot with like sound effects, music. Nathan's actually recently been creating his own Foley. So for one of our episodes where they're fighting trees, he made all of those. And in our most recent release where they're underwater and they have like these fish, all of that, he created all of that at home in like your bathtub.
Yeah, no. So it's a mix. So I subscribe to a library, like a really nice library, and I supplement it with stuff I create at home. Like I spent some money on microphones and things like that too.
And that's unique too.
It's fun, and it's like it's part of it. It's really mostly for me because like nobody ever comments on the sound.
Great splash noise.
Yeah. And like, that was a really cool effect where somebody drove a Humvee through a bunch of Russian soldiers, and it's like, I worked really hard on that,
right.
but nobody ever comments on that. But so I know it's just for me and maybe Matt, So
yeah.
But if other people appreciate that, that's awesome. But I don't,
Hell yeah. No, I think all those little things that you do different sets you apart from others, any creative outlets. But again, like you said, it's for you. You want to splash around or like, I just picture you like, cause I've seen videos of like real people doing sound effects for movies and they take like a wet towel with a microphone. They're just like, and you're like, what are they using that for? But like, I think that's, again, if you have fun with it, do it.
I actually do have some video. I put my little Zoom camera in my GoPro in the tub, and when I was like blowing bubbles and throwing pennies into it and stuff like that. So
that's like that's so fun. I love that. I want to now. Let's go. We got when I went off time for 30 years, but I want to hear like you guys have been playing together for so long. What are your favorite? Like what's happened over this time?
So do you want to do the Lee's game story?
Yeah, I think that's probably the one that's both of us combined.
Sure. And then we could split it up as we wish. I gotta know this. I want to hear these things.
Yes. So so it's my favorite character of all time that I've ever played. So Nathan and I played half brothers in a D&D game in college. A friend of ours, Lee, was the GM, and I played a half orc assassin. And Nathan played you were a human fighter, right?
Yeah.
Or were you, fighter. And we were half brothers. And it is interesting. So things have changed a lot in the gaming world. And one of them was, so when I played a half orc, it was actually hidden. So I wore like a mask, because the whole idea was that there was the half orc then was like you're playing a species of like shame. Like my mother his mother had been kidnapped by orcs, bad things happened and I showed up, and there was this whole, so I think one of the reasons I enjoyed that character so much was the fear of the social stigma of this getting out. And then having Nathan play my half brother, was like having a really good connection, and it was a good campaign. Really good role playing. I don't know. It's one of it was like, sort of still sticks in my favorite character. And today I couldn't have that experience today, right? Because people, people are playing like, half demons and, half orcs. So I play a half orc in like a Starfinder game, and he's like from a nice house and no one blinks an eye. It's just, you're just another person, playing. And I think that's cool. But I do say, like, for me, that was part of the dramatic experience, was sort of this hiding this sort of secret. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. And I mean, you still you can, like you said, these half demons, they just kind of raised the bar of what was taboo, I guess. But that's cool. So you play a half orc now, it's different. And I've actually had other folks talk about how they broke, like when they first played their half orc, they tried to break that mold. And they're like, well, what do you mean? My parents are happy. And my first half orc, the parents weren't together. His father was a traveling human who had a thing for thick women, so he was all about it. So like he was like, oh yeah, give me that. Like, so, but I've heard about that, and they recently put in a lot of changes as far as like And I mean, I think it's cool because it's like you said, this is a storytelling game. If you want your tieflings in your game to be more chaotic evil or whatever the stigma was, do it. They don't have to be. I think it is good to kind of strip you can't classify a whole race by like the alignments and stuff.
Well, in some of our own talks too, we talked about some of the questionable stuff that kind of permeates a lot of the early RPG books. And I mean, it's like tough going back and reading them. Like I was like in our last interview with one of our friends, Malcolm, I pulled out the Palladium fantasy book, and there's like some stuff in there at the beginning. It's like, man,
it doesn't all hold up the test of time.
No,
very few things do.
Yeah. 50 years from now, who knows what's going to be.
Did you, Matt? Did you eventually did your character eventually did you role play it out where he felt comfortable taking off the mask, and did you ever get busted? Like, was there any ever weird interactions with that?
Well, so it was kind of cool. So our friend Malcolm played a female half-elven ranger.
Okay.
And there was always animosity between us, and my character would never eat with the group. And so there was like a stormy night, and my guy went off alone to go eat, and she went out and saw him without his mask, and he's got like tusks and all this stuff. And so, but she didn't tell the rest of the group, but she held it. It was like an animosity sort of between the two of us, because this was, he's a half-orc, he's bad. And I guess if we talk like both good and bad stories. So we had a guy who was playing a paladin. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of where things came to the head with this particular character. Was we were going to a village that was being threatened by a dragon. Mm-hmm. And the paladin had recently in one of the adventures gotten some sort of like magical, almost like a holy sword or something, and it could help him like detect evil. And the sword kept telling him, hey, that guy over there, my character, that guy's evil. You should do something about that. And we were going into the village, and the paladin, the guy playing the paladin, his character leans over and goes, I'm going to destroy you, right? Or something like that. I'm going to have to destroy you. You're evil or something. And I was like, okay, all right. And so that
classic
night,
nice person responds to a threat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I guess if that's what you want to do.
Yeah. So that night, right, threaten the assassin. So that night, the paladin was visited by a woman who told him that there's something wrong. There's something evil in her house or something like that. And
this alleyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an alleyway at the end of an alley. And so the paladin takes the woman down there, and he goes, I detect evil. And the GM's like, you detect evil? And he looks at the woman and goes, get behind me. And at that point, in the old rules for the assassin class, it was just a base roll you'd make for assassinate. And I rolled it and killed him. Right. Killed him. And then if I hadn't worked, out of the shadows, Nathan's character came out, and our friend James's character came out too, because the guy was like the worst paladin. He was always like berating people like that. All the bad, lawful good tropes like kind of rolled into one.
Got it.
And so that was
so it goes on from there.
That was a player character that you killed.
Yes.
That's 2 episodes in a row.
I've only done it twice in my entire gaming career.
That's
twice.
2 episodes in a row where my guest and their group killed one of their. I think that was it. Right? Yeah.
So I've only been in participated in PvP twice, and it was both in this one game.
Oh my god.
This is at college. So there were people that would come in and leave. So there was kind of a core group of players. Then some people would come in late, and so there's a guy that came in, joined the party kind of late, and he didn't know like the story between Matt's character and my character. So he was a thief too, right? Or magic user thief.
He was a thief or something, yeah.
And he had it in for Matt's character for some reason. I can't remember what it was, but basically like always like insulting him and stuff like that. And there was one time where he said something about, your mother, as my mother too, but both Matt and I were sitting at this conference table in this college. Both Matt and I push back our chairs and stand up and like
and the whole room went silent. Everybody else knew what this guy had just done.
It's weird. Like it was spontaneous and it was crazy. And he had like no idea what he'd really said because he'd been kind of playing with him, us all along. But we didn't kill him then. We waited till like the last day of the campaign and then killed him there.
Just killed.
Yeah. I had the half elven ranger or cleric. She was a cleric ranger or something, whatever. Ariel cast a fog cloud while we were fighting werewolf. They were werewolf frost giants. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And created a fog. And while they did the fog, there was my second PvP.
Wow. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
That's the only character I've ever done that with. I've never. I'm not a big advocate of PvP.
I like conflict.
Yes, I like stress and conflict, but not maybe.
Conflict is good once you get down that. I can imagine once you get down where you're like, are we really like we're rolling initiative and the weapons are out? This isn't like a a little fisticuffs fight amongst friends. Like, oh boy, yeah, I haven't had that happen yet. Definitely, there's
like some punching and stuff like that, but not non-lethal stuff.
Yeah,
punching and shoving in large sacks.
Yeah, a little grappling match or something or whatever, but nothing major. That's funny. Which of you, like, out of all these systems, like, which ones? Because you've played. Wow, I can't even imagine how many systems you play. What do you prefer? Do you have a preference?
You want to watch Nathan's face crinkle up? No. So I think we both. So I like D&D 5th edition a lot. So I've played all of the different editions. I think it's a fine system. It's easy to pick up. It's easy to play.
Yeah.
It allows you to be kind of like out there and like try crazy stuff, and you're not going to like, oh, I failed my roll, I die. Right. It's very forgiving. So it lends itself to like high fantasy. There's a lot of systems I've played that I loved, but I don't play anymore. So I loved Palladium, all of the Palladium games. And I don't know when like I stopped, but it was, we played Supers, we played Robotech, we played Dark Day, Rifts. And that's probably my favorite setting. I'm a sci-fi guy. Like I love fantasy, but I'm a sci-fi guy. So those, things like now I like Starfinder, which I know Nathan hates the system. But yeah, I think those are some of my favorites. Like I said, right now, I'm really enjoying the Freeling products. But so the other thing this podcast has done is allow us to like really give us an excuse to just kind of bounce around and try different systems. But
yeah, I think that's from a listener perspective. I think it's a great way for people to hear other systems, just how they're played and stuff. Because I'm not a big reader. Like I like to listen. That's how I learn. That's how I've always learned, listening and watching. So like I'll read rules if I have to, but I will listen. Like when I can't wait to listen to these other systems you do, because then I will pick it up kind of, and then I'll be like, all right, if I ever play it. But yeah, I mean I've played 5th edition. I think it's great. I think I agree with you. It's easy, but it also sets you up for a overall understanding for like then I've played like Call of Cthulhu and a few other ones, and I have other ones, but the idea, which is good. What about you, Nathan? What are your favorites?
So D&D is great. It's like an old glove, but I find myself maybe I'm too jaded now or something, but I want there to be like actual risks.
Okay.
So in this the game that we're editing and posting now is this D&D game, and my character I'm playing him as if he has a death wish, but it's really just Nathan going, there's just no possible way this game can kill me, but I'm going to try. And so I think this is, sometimes it feels like if you have like anybody that can cast any kind of healing magic, the bumpers are on, and you're never going to get a gutter ball. So I want there to be a chance to be a gutter ball, because all the movies we watch, from Lord of the Rings to all the Marvel stuff, what's really fun is when they overcome all those obstacles, or they die and come back to life, or they lose an eye, they lose their shield, they lose loved ones, that they have to surpass all these things to actually become a hero. Just winning all the time, you're not a hero, you're a murder hobo. So
right.
So I like games like that. So the free league stuff really scratches that itch, because it is pretty gritty, and they have a lot of critical charts and things like that. And they're all kind of set up that way. There's other games that also add a little bit of narrative to it, also kind of baked into the rules. Anybody can do that with D&D. It's just how you structure how your friends play. So
yeah,
if somebody doesn't really like to,
I do. No, I get what you're saying, because like the first, few, almost maybe a year, the first 8 months to a year of playing D&D, like, we're squashing things left and right. But then there was one day where my DM's openly told me, he's like, no, like I fudged some rolls because I would have TPK'd you, like, because he gave us too many magical items and he overcompensated, and then he was like, oh my god, and then we made some dumb mistakes. But I agree that I enjoy the fear of losing the character. And I do agree that like having, because we did a one shot where we had no healers, and my DM for the first time ever killed 2 characters, and that's just, we didn't have a healer, and that's what happens. But then if you have a paladin and a cleric on your team, you need to throw some, like, the only way to put that fear in is you have to make sure that they use those healing spells, and there's more coming, and you have to deplete those resources. So I could see how, like, as a DM, you can get a little jaded of like, man, it's really hard to mess these guys up like bad or so. So I could see,
both the Alien game that I ran and Twilight 2000 characters died, but it wasn't just, it was interesting and it was fun, and nobody was mad or upset, but I'm sure people talk about session zeros all the time. I think that's really important. Is it's like, I was telling them the whole time, like every game is like, oh, I might kill one of you this game. I might kill one of you this game. So they're like ready for it. But they really played the hearts out of those characters. Those are some of my favorite characters just from the podcast, because they really put a lot into them, which is great.
Yeah.
So,
I'm excited to delve into it. I'll probably be binging one of those series this upcoming week. All right. What about so these systems? What do you got, Nathan? You got some favorite stories or anything? Because Matt had a good one.
I was there for that. So that was one of my favorite stories too. Just to be part of that. But there's so many good ones. So man. I had something in mind, but now it's like
drifted off into the ether.
It's drifted off in my old brain.
What about like right before? So you were playing a 5th edition game right before you decided to start the podcast. What was going on with that?
So again, we were fighting off the boredom of being locked in our houses. So
who was DMing that or GMing that game?
That was me. That was me. Cool. Yeah. It was so we're using Roll20, and I have like a bunch of the modules. So Against the Giants is an old game, classic game, super fun. I think most people kind of know how it goes, but they rejiggered it just for 5th edition.
Nice.
So it's super easy to run, and we use D&D Beyond, which is like super quick and easy to make characters. so we had all that going, got everything in there. The characters were pretty funny, but it was probably one of the best parts was when they finally get to the fortress of the hill giants, and Tyr's character, the paladin, decides he wants to give the giants a fair warning to stop their evil ways of terrorizing this town, and basically he rides out front on his horse, and challenge and calls for parley. And these are hill giants. They're morons, and they're evil, and they're violent. So the rest of the party was sneaking around the back and setting a fire to the rear door of the fortress,
knowing
so
that this was going to go south.
yeah, they completely abandoned him, and so I'm smiling because I know what they're doing, and so basically they just start throwing huge boulders at him, and he has to like gallop away. But like ever since then, I always somebody always throws a parlay comment out. So even in the we just had so this was like over like a year and a half ago, right, Matt? Something like that.
Yeah.
So even in like 2 episodes ago on this podcast, when I was doing we had a zombie episode, and there was a giant zombie, and I did the voices for all all the zombies. Well, I did the voice for some of the zombies. Actually, Matt and his little kid and his wife did voices for some of the other zombies, but I did the big zombie voice, and basically he just yelled parlay the whole time. It was like parlay.
As in that was the giant that died and came back to life.
Yeah. So
how did that interaction go though when he tried to get them to? Did they squish him?
They tried to squish him. They started throwing boulders at him, and the gates opened up. They chased him away, and he had to like do this long circle around and find out where the rest of the party went, because they'd all left their hiding spot.
It was a great distraction.
Yeah,
hey,
that's really what it was.
Well, we set fire to the back of the fortress or whatever.
Oh, it's so many dumb moves, but it was a lot of fun. That's a great module. We did White Plume Mountain too, which is another classic one.
Are these all like classic dungeon crawls from
basically
the older books that they've revamped?
White Plume
go ahead.
Yeah, White Plume is a very classic dungeon crawl. It's it's one of those ones that everybody should play once, as if you're at all into dungeon crawls.
I like to do a little bit of both. It can get a little tiresome after a while. I'm like, all right, I want to role play a little bit or something. But it's definitely fun. I think they work well for quick hits, but. Very, very cool.
Yeah, that's why we kind of start switching around and trying other things. And I think that's the fun part is one of the fun parts for us is getting to try stuff that we don't really get to try, in our once a month or every 2 months or every 3 months game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
go ahead. Okay, so having played with Nathan, I know you talk about different characters and stories. So what I will say is there is a trend of his characters over the last, several decades is, so usually if it's a modern or science fiction game, he tends to be a gadget guy. So this is like one of those things where like real life bleeds in, right? Because Nathan's a gadget guy. And so a lot of like engineer characters or like techie characters. The other is a lot of his characters tend to be a little bit off. Just a little. So playing Vampire the Masquerade most of the time, Malkavian. Yep, always a Malkavian. There's just always like this hint of, I'd say, a little hint of insanity and mischief thrown into his character. So that's just sort of I'd say that would be Nathan has, I can't think of a single like stern, serious, play by the numbers character.
I feel that. You know what?
Physically impossible.
I've done it a couple of we did a one shot. I was like, I'm gonna play like a kind of a dark, stern druid, and it was a nice change of pace. It was a one shot, 4 hours, but I don't know if I could keep the sternness for a long time. So I definitely like that. I don't go as chaos, but I love having a player other than me be the chaos character, because then I can just try the door, and just okay. I'm really excited because I'm gonna be hopping in on a Vampire the Masquerade game my first time, and I believe for another podcast of guests that I've had on, and then the which one did you say you picked? The crazy ones, right? Is that the one that can see through like time and stuff, fish and
like that? So it's probably changed a lot because we played the old World of Darkness. Sure. We haven't played the new, but they're insane, but through their insanity they could see some insights that the
wisdom, but it's more like the way they obtain the knowledge is not natural, so it's like it messes with them. I anytime I'm asked to do like a recording or a new system that I'm not aware of, I always go very just big broody, because I feel like that's the easiest. So I think I'm gonna do the Bruja, I think is the one. So
it's actually
Go ahead.
So we played a lot of Vampire in college, and I ran it most of the time, but I played in some other people's games. And one of my longest running characters was Bruja. He basically ran a motorcycle gang, so that was a lot of fun.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But one of my favorite Malkavians. So he was. So it's insanity. He had to pick an insanity. I'm not sure how it works now, but he had to pick an insanity. It's basically he saw ghosts all the time, but also picked a disadvantage that he was actually haunted. So one of those ghosts was actually a real ghost. And it would tell him to do things. And this ghost hated him, and it would always tell him to do like things that would end up hurting himself.
Got it.
So that's the kind of things I like to do. The chaos that is like interesting to me is like he's crazy, but he's not always crazy, and and things are going to go a little weird. I tend to kind of push things along. If there are a lot of traps somewhere, traps are boring unless they're sprung. So I don't mind running into traps.
We were in my game, we refer to that as the trap Roomba. You just go, guilty, nice. Yeah. Well, if you play 5th edition, there's a great spell called Find Traps. Maybe
that's Nathan's movement speed.
That's boring. Yeah. Okay, Find Traps is Nathan's movement speed.
It's a 30-foot per turn radius. Right?
See, in that case, bring a cleric with you because you're gonna need it, I guess. Yeah. Awesome. This was a lot of fun. Did you have anything else you wanted to share? We have a few minutes left, but
so go ahead. We're doing so we've got Alien RPG on audio only on all the podcasting platforms. We're thinking about posting just the audiograms to YouTube. I don't know if anybody actually watches those, but we might do that anyway. But we've got Twilight 2000, 17 episodes, including Session 0, and some reviews on that. Matt does excellent tutorials for Twilight 2000. They're awesome, and they get tons of views.
Awesome.
We're running through Sex, Drugs, and Saving Throws right now. We're doing two arcs, and we just started recording Battle Lords of the 23rd Century, which is a kind of old school crunchy sci-fi dark humor game that's really fun so far. So we're recording that. So there's a lot of stuff coming, and we do interviews on top of that. We try to interview publishers. So we just did an interview with Battle Lords last couple nights ago or last week.
Yeah, last week.
Jeez. but so I'm editing that right now, and that'll be posted later this week sometime. So we've got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of content kind of banked, and busy lives. We only release every 2 weeks generally.
Unless it's hard. I tried doing weekly, and then I was like, I can't do this. It's too hard, especially when
unless I completely neglect my wife, then it's going to have to be.
And then you'll have plenty of time to record all the time, right? Nice. Definitely. I'm gonna send me those links and stuff for all of those. I want to see that YouTube channel too. I want to check that out. We're gonna plug that for sure.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you guys for checking out. I'm gonna do a few quick my sign offs and then we'll get you out of here. Thanks everyone
Awesome.
for listening. This has been You Had to Be There. I'm Tom DeSillis. I'm the host. Be sure to follow the show on either here on Twitch. I post all the videos on YouTube every other week. That's when the episodes drop, every other Wednesday, along with the audio only, which can be found on all those podcast websites, which I found out recently. I never really did too many reviews, but I'm doing them now, so you should too. If you like the show, give us a 5-star or 4-star. If you don't like it, my mom told me if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So
it really helps.
Yeah, exactly. It does. My credits for like my intro, the music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can follow him on It's MJ Made on Instagram or SoundCloud. And the logo for my show was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic Podcast. And if you want to be a guest on the show, you can either hit me up on Twitter at TDesillis Comedy. That's where I released a lot of that. That's where I linked up with Nathan. Or you can email me at youhadtobethere@gmail.com. That's it for the announcement. So thanks again for listening. This has been You Had to Be There with Matt and Nathan from the AARPG Podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.